first started, I was essentially begging people to come on my platform. I had like 10 brands, and it was brands that we highlighted that we just really wanted, and we just kept pestering them till they like were like, oh my god, like okay, fine, we'll just come on board. And very like fortunately there were some people who also was just so supportive that they would call other designer friends and be like, you don't know her, but give her a production, like give her the stock. And so I had this list of amazing Indian brands and these designers didn't know who I was, they'd never met me, we only had a phone call, but just on a word of mouth of like, I'm gonna support this girl, they just sent me like 40-piece collections each for our launch, and I will never forget that.
Shahili, welcome to VGS.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. So we met at your pop-up, and I'm going to ask you to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself in a second. But I wanted to share this really quick anecdote before we start, which is that, so I attended your pop-up a couple of weeks ago, and it was at By Rotation. It was a very lovely curation and kind of visible set of pieces that you'd brought in from your brand. And I remember walking in, and I was a +1 to a friend, and I was texting her and I was like, come quickly, I'm really nervous. I don't know, I don't belong here. Like, I don't often go to events like this. So for me, it was quite new. And I was definitely feeling like, a fish out of water, a bit like, oh, I don't know anyone. And then there was you, and you were there sparkling and smiling, and you just had the warmest energy. And I was hesitant to say hi to you initially, but then I came up to you because I was like, oh, she seems nice. So thank you for being that in the room.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you're welcome, but I want it to be like that for people. I don't want fashion to be an intimidating space. So I'm really glad that you felt like, oh, you know what? She seems really nice. I'm going to say hi, because you should. Yes. And I'm so glad you did.
Yes. And you said the same to me. You were like, I'm really glad you came up and said hi, because it does take a lot sometimes when you're in a new environment. So
of course.
I definitely think that that's something that really stands out about you in this space. So having said that and keeping that in mind, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners who might not know who you are?
Okay, I'm going to try to make it very short and snappy. I'm Shahili Gomes McCoy. I am one of the co-founders of the Design Collective. I am also the creative director there. I also have a couple of other brands, Ceylon Born, which is a kids store, and I also own an interior store called Gandhara in Sri Lanka. How would I describe myself? I guess I'm an entrepreneur, a creative. I'm also a mom, a wife, a sister. So, and I like to say that I'm also like a really good friend to people. Like that is like a good trait I have, I think. So I kind of like to bring all of those things together when I talk about myself.
Yes. And I think you're definitely very, very loved, I would say, in London and in this community. I felt it when I met you, but also later when I was having a little stalk to prepare for today, I realized we have so many mutual friends. And I was like, oh, I'm quite surprised that, I hadn't heard of your work before. So I'm really glad that I have now.
Oh, I'm so happy you came, and like, you should have been invited in the first place, but I'm so happy that you came as a +1 and we got to meet. So that's good karma.
How do you feel during this trip in London, and what has the reception been like, kind of mingling within the community and having now seen people look at the pieces in person? What has the vibe and the reception been?
I think it's always like quite a nerve-wracking process. You bring a product that you're so close to and you almost don't know how it's going to be received. The good thing is, because we've done a few of these in London before, we kind of know our consumer, what they like. So I almost feel like we played it very safe. I brought brands that I knew that could work and people are really fond of. So that was a good thing to kind of work on. So I think people were really happy to see brands that they were also familiar with, because they were like, oh my gosh, Shahili, you brought this, when you did your pop-up 2 years ago, that was really lovely. I really like this collection. Oh my God. So it's kind of bringing that familiarity to everybody, and that was really nice. So I think it was really well received in terms of the brands, the products, the pricing, but also it was a really nice way to bring everybody together. And that's really nice as well. And I feel like, everybody's so busy in London, and everyone is just, it's quite manic and quite stressful life here, I suppose. But it's also quite nice to do things where I can bring like the community-led projects as well. It's not just about the pop-up and selling product, but it's also bringing people like us together to talk about things which are meaningful and what we are passionate about. Because end of the day, I work in fashion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saving lives. So you know what I mean? But I do enjoy the bringing people together. And I think that's very meaningful for me.
And I definitely think it's a real strength that you're tapping into of yours. I realized that you had studied in the UK.
Yes.
And then you moved back to Sri Lanka, and obviously now you're in the Middle East. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So now actually coming back to London as a visitor and as someone who's sort of like kind of dipping their toes back in and trying to like, I guess you already know a lot of people in the community, but actually like bringing your brand here, how has that felt? Like, does it feel different? Do you feel nostalgic?
That's a really interesting question. It's weird because I lived here for 16 years. I lived in London for almost 14 years. I went to uni undergrad at Manchester Business School, then a year abroad in Copenhagen. So I felt like I have lived in many places. And then, I moved to London to do my postgrad at Imperial. So I've been here a long time, but it's also like I left to Sri Lanka for a very short period. So it was like a 6-month period till before we moved to Abu Dhabi.
Right.
So overall, because it hasn't been even a year in Abu Dhabi, it feels like in one way that I never left.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
But also, I don't live here anymore. I don't have a base in here anymore. And that's also kind of strange because when I was taking the tube and I voice noted you today, being like, wait, how do I get that? There's moments where you just kind of forget everything how you've learned in your brain.
Yeah.
So there are moments of like, where I feel like, oh my God, I don't live here. I don't remember how to do this. And it's quite nostalgic. But also, it's like so familiar. It is home. Like, I've been here forever. So it's also really nice to come back in this kind of capacity where I have a work project, but also really nice to like see everybody that I was so close to.
Definitely.
So that's been really nice. And I think what we want to continue doing is, even though I'm not based here anymore, to make sure that Design Collective will always do something fun and interesting during the summers here in London, because it's a good way to bring together everybody that we had cultivated this whole time. So it won't make any sense if you just like thought, okay, now we don't need to do this anymore. But I think it's really important to keep going.
Absolutely. And I also think like a lot of the brands that you feature on the Design Collective are sort of quite summer friendly for the UK. And so it's a
absolutely. Because we don't have any seasons. We have like a monsoon and then a summer and a summer and a summer. So all of the brands that we work with kind of are geared only towards spring, summer, and that's it. So I can only do like summer pop-ups, resort wear pop-ups. Like my designers have no concept of winter wear. Like it's not something that they do. I mean, some of the incredible Indian brands do, because obviously Delhi gets really cold.
Yes.
So they have beautiful like long jackets and they'll work with pashminas and beautiful things, but it's just that we don't stock that beautiful product for Sri Lanka. We just don't need it. So we kind of work with a very like summer edit throughout the year, which is also quite fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's quite different as well, because a lot of the clothes you often see in the UK, like it's quite rare, or maybe there's not such a long time period where you can shop for summer wear or resort wear. It's usually just like to get out of the country.
Exactly.
I want to continue talking about this, but a very fun fact that I figured out was that we were both at Imperial at the same time.
What? No way!
I just find it so interesting how we were probably on the same campus for a whole
all the
year.
time. We would have gone to the same coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like,
Isn't that weird?
so amazing.
So tell me a little bit about, because obviously you're this incredible entrepreneur now and you're running these multiple brands and, busy and doing so many things. But as a kid, was that something you always aspired to? Did you know that you had that kind of flair in you?
I don't know if would say that I knew that I had the flair and that I would be good at it. And I honestly don't even think right now I'm good at it, but I'm doing it. But I always knew I wanted to own and start my own business from the get-go. I would have been like 7 or 8 years onwards. Like if someone asked, oh, are you going to be a doctor? Because, we're Asian and everyone assumes you're going to be a doctor or an engineer or like, something of this sort, not a creative person. And I would be like, oh, I think I'm going to work in fashion and I'm going to have my own business. So I always knew that I was going to do something by myself. I think for the longest time, I thought I was going to study fashion in terms of like design and then go to design school. But my parents are also entrepreneurs, so I was surrounded by people who owned businesses, and it was also at home. My parents used to always talk about work things at the dinner table, so I feel like I was really exposed to it. So, and my mom, she owns an interior design company, and she was like, designing is really hard, really hard. She almost, I feel like she really put me off designing, but then I was still like, you know what, I love this industry. I'm gonna like study business and I would still, somehow work in the industry is what happened in the end. But I always knew I wanted to work in fashion and I always knew I wanted to do my own business. I just didn't know in like what capacity and what it was going to be like.
And when you were a kid, or maybe like even in your more like teenage years, let's say, I guess I would love to know what kind of like clothing or textiles or fabrics really like were part of your day to day. Were you wearing a lot of like homegrown brands at the time, or what was that like?
It was impossible to wear homegrown brands all the time because there was like no space for you to actually shop.
Right.
So when I was growing up, I certainly didn't have this idea of like, okay, this is a Sri Lankan brand and like, I want to wear this. I was kind of like, my mom would kind of do my shopping as a child. And then I would be like, okay, yeah, that's what I'm going to wear, I suppose. I feel like with my child, River, who's only 4, would be like, no, I'm not wearing that. I definitely didn't have that as a child. But I remember as I was growing up, I was more conscious and more curious. And I realized it wasn't a very easy way to navigate that. There are incredible entrepreneurs that have started amazing stores, but that didn't mean that they were Sri Lankan brands. They were maybe like factory outlets. Factory outlets and maybe like more mass production brands. So not really like independent small studios. Those tend to kind of run where you have an amazing designer, they have an amazing studio, and they would sell from the studio. Because there weren't concept stores or little department stores.
Like boutiques, right?
Or boutiques.
Yeah.
The Design Collective is 8 years old and there are a few other boutiques now. But before that, there was not that much. There's only been like 1 or 2 in the past 10 years.
That's so interesting, because when did you actually start seeing that shift happen? Do you think that aligned with kind of when you were finishing up your studies?
Yeah. So I think it was like when I was in university, I saw more people being conscious about wearing more Sri Lankan things and like these beautiful boutiques opening up in Sri Lanka. And 8 years ago, when I thought, I wanted to do something to kind of carve out this niche. And Binu, my co-founder, she studied designing actually. So she studied at NIFT in Delhi. And then she did her master's at LCF. And so she's got a really incredible design background, so she can like make sure that the garment actually works when there are problems with it, right? She understands the pattern and the block and all of that. So when I kind of roped her into this idea and this business, I was like, Binu, there's no place to shop in Colombo. Like, where do you go shopping? I was over for like a summer holiday and I was just like, where do you go shopping? Like, where do we buy things? And then I realized, oh my God, like we should start a business that focused on South Asian brands that start with Sri Lankan and India. And let's see what we can grow it. And we had maybe like 10 brands when we started.
Yeah.
So really, and it was like, honestly, we were like begging brands to come on board. Like, I'm not even joking. I was like essentially begging. And then they would ask you the question of, who else do you have? And you're just like, let me think. Actually, we have potentially this one, but actually you have nobody signed. So it's like one of those like chicken and egg situations of like getting someone on board to like believe in you as a concept.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of started. Like it wasn't a very easy process, I have to say.
I guess through your education, did you feel like you had the tools, and through people around you, did you feel like you had the support to actually help you propel this business forward? Or did you really feel like you were just kind of like figuring it out by yourselves as you went along?
I feel like there were some aspects I felt like, okay, we're really well prepared in the sense of we understood, me and Binu together, we both have, you know, a design background, a creative background, and a business background. Like we, you know, and even though I'm the one that went to business school, Binu is actually way more savvy with the numbers, way more than me. And even though I didn't go to design school, I'm way better with like the creative, like design aspect. It's very weird, but we have this like kind of weird skill set.
Yeah.
So I felt like in certain aspects, we were so well prepared. You know, I went to Imperial to study strategic marketing. So I had a very good comms marketing background, and I knew what it would take to make a really good brand. And that from the start, I was very clear, like our brand positioning needs to be like this and this and this. But I think the more difficult things is, end of the day, you are working with people. And no one will teach you how to work with people. No school, no university.
So true.
And that is, you kind of learn as you go. And that could be like a very easy task or sometimes a very difficult task. So I've had incredible creatives, designers who've been such a pleasure to work with, and some not so great. And that is quite hard to navigate sometimes, you know, and no one kind of prepares you for those things as well. So that we kind of have to wing it and see how it goes.
I love the honesty. But I think it's so true. Like no one really teaches you the softer skills, you know.
No.
And it's so interesting that you say this, because in my own life, if I draw a parallel, I always find like, you know, having had like similar, like, you know, studied a very intense degree and all of this stuff. And I'm like, actually, I feel like the stuff that comes to me more naturally are the softer skills. And those are the skills and the things I lean on now. It's very interesting because sometimes you wonder, well, like, what actually did I gain out of my studies? But then you're like, actually, no, like it does obviously give you a lot of tools and I guess teaches you how to approach a problem.
Absolutely. I still think it's like, I'm still on the thought that it was super good that I did all of that. I made also the most incredible friends.
Yeah.
I loved living here in the UK. It was so different to being in Sri Lanka. So I was like so happy to be like, off I go to university in the UK.
Yeah.
So I think there were so many like pros, but I can't really think that, okay, that was that subject that helped me with my business. That is probably much harder.
Yeah.
And especially it's like, there's so much in the business that really that goes wrong on a day-to-day. So it's like crisis management, like every day, all the time, and no one is teaching you to do this.
Could you tell me about a recent crisis that you've had to deal with?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's like, honestly, there's every day that there is something. I mean, even at the pop-up, you know, we thought we'll set up much quicker than usual because we've done this multiple times. Of course, that didn't happen. There were so many like delays. We had like stock getting stuck in customs. Like, what do you do? Like, it's like literally stuck in a DHL depot, and like you can't plan for all of it, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so we had all of those issues, some VM missing, like all of these things happen. So you end up like setting up till 1 a.m., then being exhausted for a panel, which is at 9 a.m. And everyone's like, how are you? And I'm like dying inside.
You honestly you made it look so easy. You didn't let on at all that you'd been up till 1 a.m. steaming clothes, like you said in the panel.
Yeah, you know, it's not as glamorous as people think. There are some really glamorous things in fashion as well. I mean, like going for shows and, you know, all of these things are really fun. And, you know, being part of campaigns and press projects and all of those are really fun. But behind the scenes are not really that fun. And it's very labor intensive if you don't have a big team. And in Sri Lanka, I have an incredible team. I have an incredible team that has been in the store for a really long time. I also have like an amazing store manager and like a wider team that helps me with everything. So it's me and Binu, and we have this incredible team with us. But the minute we do pop-ups in London or Abu Dhabi or anywhere else, we don't come with our whole team because the expenditure is just too much. So then we are steaming and tagging, and it's kind of like this ridiculous process, which is very labor intensive.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's that classic like story of I guess someone who runs their business is you have to be thinking like on a high level, but also willing to roll up your sleeves and like
Absolutely.
be able
Absolutely.
to do every job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because, at any point you just can't have an ego with these things. And I just think that, like, obviously in Sri Lanka, it's very rarely that I'm steaming or tagging. But if I had to do it, I would do it. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm the founder and I don't do this.
Yeah.
That's not true. I would always do what I can do to make my business better without any ego around it.
So walk me through the actual process of onboarding a brand. So do you have like kind of a list of aspirational brands that you'd like to feature on your platform? How do you approach them? And then also, how do you make sure that their story is aligning with your ethos as a brand? Because I know that you're so incredibly intentional with kind of the story behind each brand and how the products are made and making sure that it's like ethical and all of those things. So tell me more about that process.
So that's a really interesting question. Thank you. And it's really been a big mix of how we take on new brands now. When we first started, like I said, I was essentially begging people to come on my platform. I had like 10 brands, and it was brands that we highlighted that we just really wanted, and we just kept pestering them till they were like, oh my God, like, okay, fine, we'll just come on board. And very fortunately, there were some people who also was just so supportive that they would call other designer friends and be like, you don't know her, but give her a production, like give her the stock. And so I had this list of amazing Indian brands and these designers didn't know who I was. They'd never met me. We only had a phone call, but just on a word of mouth of like, I'm going to support this girl. They just sent me 40-piece collections each for our launch. And I will never forget that. So that was that when we first started. Now it's a big mix, like you said. So we'll have a list of brands that we'll see, like some journalists, if they write about some brands that we have thought like, oh wow, that's like really interesting, and it's like been featured somewhere, and then we would reach out saying like, oh no, we've just seen your feature so and so, we've heard great things about you. Is there a way we can like see your lookbook and like have a jump on a call and see how we can work together? So that's like one way. And then we have the latter, which is obviously brands reaching out to the design collective and asking if we can stock them. And with that list, we'll kind of go through if like, do we have anything which is existing, which is very similar? Because if that's the case, we will avoid taking those brands, because what we try to showcase in the whole store is everyone's different identity and their personality. Now, the curation of the store, which I'm really involved in, it doesn't mean that it's everything that I would necessarily wear.
Okay. Yeah.
And some boutiques would style it in a way that everything is like just for like exactly the identity of the owner or that curator. But with Design Collective, there are so many pieces. If you come in and you'll be like, oh my God, that is so Shahili. That is so Shahili. So you'll be able to identify some brands and some key things that you'll be like, oh, that's totally her style. But there are some brands who you'll just be like, whoa, that is like not her style at all. And I've showcased that because it is still an interesting product. It's an interesting material, perhaps. Maybe the designer behind it is an amazing person and is like really wants to showcase something which is really interesting, and they're really passionate. So it's not just about like the product in the end. We also want to work with like really good people and also give them a platform.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't feel like there's too many of the same things.
I see what you mean. And how do you strike that balance? Because obviously you want to spotlight and give a platform to as many, intentional brands and aligned brands as you can. So how is it when you have to say no to a brand?
Yeah, it kind of sucks, but it's loads to do with there's like no capacity and space in the store. So sometimes if the brand is amazing and I really think, oh gosh, like we really need to give some space or capacity, what we'll try to do is like we'll have it just on our website and we can ship to anywhere. So they still get that platform of like it being available in a global market. But they obviously want to be in the store in Colombo as well. And maybe when another collection or brand has to move out, maybe then we'll slot them in.
I see.
So we do a little bit of that as well. Because when we do take on a brand, it also doesn't mean that we're going to have them forever, right? And also people's circumstances change as well. With creatives, you have to understand that they come in with like big visions, and it's a very like you need a lot of capital to be in fashion. You have to keep producing new products. You need to do campaigns. You need to do marketing. Photo shoots cost so much money. So it's not just having an amazing product. It's all about that story.
Yeah.
So sometimes they do really well 2 years and maybe like it's not sustainable for them, and there's something in that mix that they haven't quite cracked, then it's very difficult for then a store to keep stocking this brand when they are like not laser focused with their vision. So then it gives opportunities to other people. So I guess like that it works out in the end, but there are loads of times we just don't have the capacity for our team, but simply no space in the store as well. But it's such a nice problem to have now. Think about when I started.
Yeah.
So it's very, very nice to, I feel like, and like it's like, I feel proud to be in that situation than when I was starting out.
So when you were starting out, did you already have a crystal clear vision of, you know, this is the number of brands we would want, this is the kind of variety? I know that you don't just do clothing, you do like jewelry and bags and other things too, accessories. So is it kind of shaping up to be what you had envisioned for it all those years ago?
Yes. Which is kind of strange in a way, because like, you know, in your mind, I was like, okay, this is what I wanted to do. And I can't wait for you to actually come to Sri Lanka at some point and, you know, see the store as well for yourself. I wanted the store to be able to exist anywhere. So let's say we just like took the whole store and like plonked it middle of the King's Road. It'll work. In terms of the vibe, like, you know, it's like a very minimal, cool aesthetic in terms of what the store looks like. There's always like nice music, and, you know, it works in a way that it'll work anywhere else in the world. And that I'm very proud of the product that we have right now.
And would you say that you have a vision for it for the next like 5 years, 10 years, or do you kind of work on a shorter term basis? No.
I think we try to look at like maybe every 2 years, like what we need to do.
Yeah.
And I think right now we're looking at opening other stores. And so it's like we have some exciting projects happening in Colombo, which we're really excited about. And then we're about a beach shop. So we're still thinking, do we do one in the South Coast in Sri Lanka? It's quite a fun project to do, but also comes with different logistic problems.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we always have this, you know, ideas, and we're always thinking about it, and we're trying to see like what's the best way and what's the best time to do all of this. Because what you don't want is like, you know, take too much, more than what you can chew, and then not a good way to like, you know, end the story in a way, you know.
Definitely being aware of your capacity and what's possible from a personal standpoint.
For sure.
I guess that segues us into slightly more personal question, but from a perspective of, you know, a founder, co-founder, but also like all these other roles you said you have, how do you find yourself actually managing like the possibly sometimes pressures of the role that you play in the design collective with all the other responsibilities of life? And, you know, like you said, there's fires to put out all the time. So how are you actually, you know, managing that, staying sane and smiling in front of me today?
I think like, you know, I've talked about this before, and I really talked about it, you know, being a mother and running a business, because that alone is like quite a challenging situation. And I just know that every day I can't be like the most incredible entrepreneur on that day and the best mom on the same day. Like it's just like not possible. So I just think I kind of take it day at a time, and I try to do much as I can, but it's not 100%. So the days that I'm like full on 100% with the design collective, like really, really on top of every single thing, it does put a setback on like some of the other projects and businesses I'm involved in.
Yeah.
And because I just can't be 100% think about all of those projects at the same time. But also, I'm not like 100% at home with River as well, because I'm like so focused on my work. And then vice versa, the days that I'm just like playing with River for like 5 hours straight and having like really good quality time. Obviously, I have not checked my emails or WhatsApp or anything. So it's like not a good day on a work diary.
Right.
So it's really difficult to have a balance. And I don't think a balance exists. So,
yeah, it's very true. I guess like the question is also, how do you manage the guilt that comes with that?
yeah, it sucks, but you just kind of like wallow in it and forget about it. Like, you know?
Yeah,
like,
pick yourself up. And
yeah. Because you do feel guilty and you feel quite demoralized some days, right? You're just like, I am doing so much and yet I'm really not doing much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you do have days where you just feel like, oh my God, this is awful. And like, also, why am I doing this? You know, I have the thought a lot where I'm just like, Binu, why are we doing this? You know, like
I have that all the time. I mean, before we started, like I literally said that. I was like, I don't know why I'm running a podcast.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're constantly having those doubts.
Mm.
I know for one that I'm super passionate about it.
Yeah.
So there is that keeps me going.
Mm.
I know that people say that I'm making a difference, so that helps as well. And so I keep going, but obviously it is hard. And I guess you definitely, like, I'm so grateful for having an incredible co-founder. There is one thing to at least you have another body to keep, like, you know, celebrating the wins together, but also just like wallowing in the self-pity as well.
Yeah.
It's because being an entrepreneur can be quite lonely. So it's quite good that, you know, the co-founders have each other.
Yeah, and you just have someone to like message and rant to.
You know, and that's there. And we have a really good team and we're really grateful for our team. And some of the designers we've worked with them for like over 8 years. So they feel part of like our extended team as well. So very, very proud about that. And I'm really proud from having this idea of having this store in Sri Lanka. We've built a platform that can be easily accessible anywhere because we ship everywhere, and we bring it in real life that people can touch and feel in so many different cities. So
it makes such a difference.
So we're quite happy about that.
That's lovely to hear, and I'm so glad that you have someone as in the form of a co-founder, Binu, to talk to about all of these things and kind of, I guess, like really, what's the word? Just acknowledge like the journey that you've been on.
Totally.
You said something that piqued my interest, which was you said that other people tell you that you are making a difference.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you acknowledging that you're making a difference is not sufficient to move you forward? Do you feel like you need other people to remind you?
Yeah. Definitely. Because I mean, I kind of know that I am making a difference. Again, it's a very like I kind of know. But yeah, it's probably not enough. I feel like other people and like especially the creatives that we work with.
Yeah.
When it comes from them, it definitely sits with me and Binu in a much nicer way. And we're like, yeah, that's why we.
Yeah. Or maybe they've not had that experience before with another, you know, somewhere else that they are having with you, the positive, you know, feeling of, we feel safe here and, you know, celebrated.
Yeah. We have a very like collaborative mindset.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we really want to like encourage amongst other designers and other creatives. Like it's very difficult to do this game alone. It makes much more sense to have a collaborative mindset and work together.
And I feel like we could talk so much about the industry, but before we move into that, speaking of kind of celebrating each of the designers in the right way that they deserve and so they feel safe, how do you ensure that through the Design Collective you're actually honoring their stories and making sure that you're bringing to the light or to the surface how they've actually, you know, created their products, how they've designed, you know, what the story is behind that and what their intention is?
We would work with the designers very like on a one-on-one basis, and Binu and I actually have like catch-ups with all of them. And when I'm in Sri Lanka, we also like meet in person and kind of map out like what they want to do. So when we take somebody on, it's a process of like, what are we going to work on together for like the next 6 months and then for the whole year. So we will talk to them and understand, like, what is it that they want to talk about? What is their brand campaigns going to look like? What are their hero products? What is their curation that they want to focus on? So there's a lot of work that we do together. So once we kind of understand like what they want, we kind of work collaboratively to bring that to life. Now there are brands that talk to us on a daily basis with questions and stuff. And I think that works out much better for us because the more questions they ask, the more thinking that we have to do. And that way actually more collaboration kind of happens. Whereas maybe some brands don't want that touch point, but then maybe the comms could get lost because we do work across so many brands. We work over 70 plus brands now. So it is difficult to kind of prioritize everybody, but that's what we try to do. But it completely depends on how much the brand wants to work as well. And also it depends on like their budgets. And that's something we really have to talk about because they might come with all these incredible ideas saying like, okay, well, that brand is doing X, Y, and Z, and I want to do all of that. And I'm like, definitely we can, but you'll also have to do this and this and this. And that means you'll have to spend on all of these things as well. So I think that's quite difficult for some brands because with events like a pop-up like costs so much money. Like the actual activation of it costs so much money. And I think that's something like sometimes like brands and creatives like forget. They're like, I want to do a big event. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
It's that classic like Insta versus reality when you look at the finished product and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that.
I could do that. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, it is, it's hard. But you have to start somewhere. So I'm always like, it's not a no.
It's just like let's scale it back. Let's
exactly
plan this for later. Yeah,
exactly. So there's a lot of that all the time. So I'm in like, I don't know, like over 300 WhatsApp chats, which like do my head in. But yeah, there's always like conversations happening around different things at various stages. You know, we finished the London pop-up. And then Binu went back on the Monday straight into like 2 collection launches in Sri Lanka.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really like quite intense. Like I'm here because obviously I'm seeing family and like loads of friends. But yeah, she kind of left Monday. And then on the Thursday, we had this like big collection launch. And I was just like, come back.
I feel like you've mentioned financials a couple of times, and actually from the perspective of a consumer, and I guess from my own shoes, I'm somebody who is increasingly, I guess, intentional about where I shop. I'm trying to be better. I'm not great. I still shop fast fashion. But I'm trying to kind of learn more about homegrown brands or just like the story of the clothes that I'm wearing. And sometimes something that holds me back a little bit is the financials. So can you, I guess, tell me a little bit about whether if someone is like me, like a consumer, is trying to tap into wearing clothes that are more intentionally made, do I have to have a lot of capital and a lot of money to be able to afford that?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know if you had a chance to go through all of the collections at the pop-up, but there were items for like, you know, £40, £45, £35. And I would say, which is kind of like priced at like a fast fashion price
high
point,
street,
but it's 100% not fast fashion. They are made in like such limited quantity. But that works out only because, you know, the cost of production in Sri Lanka is obviously cheaper than the UK. And we are able to price some things at that price. And it's not made in a factory or anything like that. But there are obviously some pieces which are like much more expensive, like the hand embroidery, beading tends to be much more expensive. But still, labor is not as expensive as here or getting it manufactured in Italy or France. So you can still get this beautiful gown for like 350, 400 pounds rather than like in the thousands. So it depends on how it's manufactured and where. And the second thing is like all about comes to brand positioning as well. Like it could be made in an amazing place in Sri Lanka or India for much cheaper, but maybe it's priced at, I don't know, £700 because that is the brand identity of that brand. And that's where they want to position it as a more luxury brand. So I leave it up to the brand, how they want to position themselves. But I do give them a lot of advice with how to position it and what is the pricing strategy and what works and what consumer, who is your consumer end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, and how do you want to attract that consumer? Now, so I don't impose like what I think is that, because there's no like right way. That is the brand positioning. What I do is I represent them and I give them a platform. But why I had those brands which were having that 40 pound, 45 pound, 50 pound kind of products as well is because I want accessibility to that consumer who's really conscious about buying beautiful products, handmade in Sri Lanka, but don't want to spend 200 pounds on a top. So it's about that accessibility of price, which is why we're still playing in that market. But also something else that we talk about is size. So size and price is something that I don't want people to feel intimidated coming into my store, where they come in and they're like, oof, everything in Shahili's store is expensive and everything is for a skinny girl. Like that is literally the last thing I want. I want them to feel like so warm and so welcome.
Yeah.
And I want them to feel like, oh, that was like this really cute top and it wasn't crazy expensive and I'm still supporting a cool independent brand. And also I had customers, even in this London pop-up, these two girls who came in and she was like, I didn't expect to find anything in my size and I have found so many things in my size. Thank you. And I was just like, that is a big win. Like, to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, with pop-ups as well, because
especially in a pop-up.
Yes.
Especially in a pop-up.
Because you would think the focus would be on,
absolutely.
certain
And
sizes.
it did have brands that didn't have a lot of sizes. And that's okay, because that's what like that brand wanted to do. And that's okay as well. But it's so important to still look at the whole curation and look like, okay, I need these sizes. Where is it available?
Yeah, as long as there's something for everyone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I really respect that intentionality, because that's another thing. I think sometimes, like, I'm not a skinny girl. And sometimes I think, I go to shops and constantly I feel like, oh, things are, designed more for a certain type of body.
100%.
And I often find that when I go to India, which is obviously my hometown, like I find that, like sometimes I have to squeeze myself into things because they don't have many sizes. And then actually the whole kind of perception that I've had growing up of shopping there, it's always kind of been, and we talked about this in the panel as well, it's been like predominantly, wedding wear or like occasion wear.
Yeah.
And anything that's like, just, I guess, quote unquote, normal day-to-day clothes, I would just not really find in my size, or I wouldn't know where to go. So tell me a little bit about, I guess, how that landscape is now shifting when it comes to like South Asian designers and homegrown brands that are coming particularly into the West and particularly among the diaspora.
Yeah.
Because I still think there's a way to go for people's mindsets to change around how they shop and what they wear.
Yeah. So I think when I look at the design collective and I'll speak from that perspective, most of the brands that we work with are working on day-to-day clothing. So more casual clothing, more like a summer edit. So I do have those evening wear and occasion pieces, but it's more like a very limited collection. So maybe in the whole store, we'll have maybe 50 beautiful saris, like any time of the year. And then we will have things like lehengas and more embroidered work as well, because obviously there's like, events in Sri Lanka. But majority of the store is the day-to-day casual wear. So, and some of the brands that we brought to the London pop-up, like Nod or Doodle Age or Jodi, I mean, these are like such fun brands which are doing women's wear contemporary so well. And it's like all a very casual edit, but it's still really fun. I bought this Jodi jacket, this green thing that I'm literally wearing every single day. Today is probably the only day I didn't wear it. And everyone was like, God, she's wearing the same thing. And like, I'm obsessed with it. It's like this really cool jacket. It's got like embroidery and it goes with like every single outfit I'm being wearing. And I love this other brand called Doodle Age that we work with, which is a sustainable brand in the sense they work with dead stock. And another Sri Lankan brand called House of Lunali. Again, she works with dead stock material. So they all interpret it, I think, casual and contemporary wear very differently.
Yeah.
And they all have a different brand identity. But when Westerners think of South Asian brands, that is not what comes to mind. They're obviously thinking of more evening wear and like festive wear as like occasion. And I think even us South Asians, maybe because we have like the big brands like the Taruns and the Sabyas, they're all about the glamorous evening wear. We are not really thinking about the more casual wear brands on the day to day. So I think it'll take more time. I think it's going to take more time for us to think of like, oh, but you know what about these brands? So I think there's a lot of movement in it. There's a lot happening in the industry with these brands. Obviously, we stock a lot of them. And I find it much easier to obviously wear these brands all the time.
Yeah.
But like the thinking about it and the thought, I think will take much more time. Because even now when you go to India, I think the first line of shopping is probably
Lehenga.
festive, right? Lehenga, sari, jewelry.
I'll go to Bombay and I'll go to Seasons and I'll stock up on lehengas.
Exactly. So, and you maybe go to the big brands to even have a nosy and see like what's trendy and what's beautiful because they have the most stunning stores. But I don't think the first line of stops would be like the brands that I spoke about. But now you're aware and you will go to those studios and you will go to those stores.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't come to mind, I don't think, as like to be like, oh,
not yet.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a mindset shift I'm personally going through. And I think what happens is when we think of day-to-day wear, we think of our like Zara's, Mango's, you know, ASOS, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And then, like South Asian wear, I'll go straight to like extreme. Yeah. So there's definitely in between. I love Jodi Life. Like they're such a great brand. And actually I have my eyes on a couple of their pieces.
Yes,
so I'll definitely
it's an amazing
invest.
brand. And brands like Yam, where
Yam is good.
It's
well,
beautiful. It's all hand painted. You know, can you imagine? She hand paints all of this.
Yeah.
And then it becomes into these beautiful prints. You know, Itraba Kyati Pandey, again, a beautiful brand, incredible material. So, and those are like everyday, day-to-day brands. Like maybe Yam you could wear for like some festive
like resort wear
and resort wear, but they're still day-to-day, you know. You're not going to wear these brands for a wedding.
Yeah.
No.
I love what you're bringing to the West through the Design Collective. And I'm really excited to see how it continues to grow out here because I definitely will be looking at your website and trying to order things. I want to wear more South Asian designers in my day-to-day. It's kind of a transition phase for me. And I think for a lot of us out here, because it's becoming a lot more common knowledge that there are such incredible designers and they're becoming more accessible thanks to brands like yours. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
And thank you for just being such a light in the fashion industry. I feel like we could have spoken a lot more about that side of things, but maybe we'll leave that for a second episode. But no, Shahili, thank you for coming onto the show. And it's been such a pleasure to have you in London.
Thank you so much for having me. It's honestly been such a pleasure. Thank you.
And one last question that I leave all of my guests with, which is, what do you have strong game in?
I think I'm really good with people. I think I'm very good at gauging and understanding their personality and also kind of understanding their energy. Sounds really juju, but like...
Oh, I'm the same. It is, but no, it's a thing.
I think it's a thing. And based on that, I can like figure out, I think, like how they're going to be like. And I feel like that's a big part on how I work. So I think very quickly I can gauge if I'm going to be really good friends with somebody or whether they're going to be just like a work acquaintance or whether I never have to speak to them again.
Mood.
It's like, you know, so I can do that very quickly, I think.
That's a really good game to have. Yeah, I love that. Very inspired.
So like all of my other friends, like they always laugh about it. They were like, you know, she goes to Abu Dhabi and she's like suddenly has like 100 more friends as well. Like one thing is also I can make friends quickly, which is I think a nice skill. But I can also gauge that also, even though you make the 100 friends, where they each stand, because obviously not all 100 are your close friends. So I think that's a decent skill to have.
I would agree. I would almost argue that that's probably the most important skill to have.
Do you think? I mean, I don't know, but it's definitely been a good thing to have.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely felt that in I don't know, just the radiance and the energy that you put out. I think you're very approachable, and I think what you're building is something definitely to look out for, because it's something that as a diaspora, like I said, we absolutely need. So I think you understand what people need as well, which I would just add on to your strong game. Thank you for coming on, Shahili.
Thank you so much. I've loved being here. Thank you.